got 22. For the score, 90-88. Front court left, Stockton falls down. He's fouled on the play by Neil Armstrong, and Stockton is hurt. He's hurt. His ankle. And trust me, he is hurt. He never will take a step of the way. When he gets up, Jazz going to have to take the 22nd timeout. Armstrong on the play gets his second.
You see that just right here, that left foot steps right on his ankle, and he really rolls that ankle really, really good.
Captain Briggs and Jerry Sloan come over and have to help Stockton off the court. Wow, that's a big blow to the Jazz. Kirilenko has him by the right arm, and John with his arm.
That ankle sprain took place during a playoff game. Would you think that's a serious ankle sprain? The response is always the same by the audience. It's probably the worst ankle sprain I've seen. Now, would it surprise you if I told you that we had John Stockton back on the court in 15 minutes and he played the fourth quarter? What's even more impressive is we had a back-to-back game during that season. He played the next night, absolutely pain-free. And we won that series. So, how many of you sprained an ankle? Most of us in here have. And how long did it take for you to recover? A week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks? Standard of care is, in a severe ankle sprain, you're on crutches for a week, you're in a boot. Second week, you have passive range of motion, some physical therapy. Third week, more aggressive range of motion, exercises, weight-bearing exercises, running in the pool. And each week thereafter, you increase the intensity of the rehab until you're basically pre-injury state and you return to play. I had the great opportunity of working with the Utah Jazz for 24 years and consulting for 2. During the 20-year period, we had the lowest player missed game due to injury rate of any team in the NBA. Our average was 61 player missed games due to an injury. The league average was 171. 2 seasons, our player missed game due to injury rate was 11. Now, we produced those amazing results because we integrated really good medical care, great trainers, great strength conditioning coach, and a unique integrated chiropractic approach. When I resigned and I left, the player missed game due to injury rate went from 11 that 1 year to 114, and the second year went to 223. Now, what that showcases is what's possible when you integrate systems, chiropractic, homeopathy, acupuncture, medical care. Now, there was a research done a number of years ago in Chicago, Illinois. 700,000 patients in a Blue Cross Blue Shield product were given the opportunity to be treated by primary care chiropractors in conjunction with medical practitioners. After 6 years, what they found was a 60% decrease in hospitalizations, an 85% decrease in outpatient surgeries, a 59% decrease in pharmaceutical use, and an overall 66% decrease in costs. Recently, the American Orthopedic Association came out with new guidelines that for anyone who's considering low back surgery, that they should first go through a course of chiropractic care. Now, we all know that we're in a crisis right now, a healthcare crisis, and we're looking for ways to contain costs. And what I submit to you is that a way of doing that is by integrating care approaches. You know, we talk about healing. What is healing? Is it curing? Does it constitute good health? What constitutes good health? The lack of symptoms? Well, let's say that you're going on your dream trip to a faraway island, and you're entering the airplane, and you enter the airplane, and you notice that a good friend is the pilot. He's one of the best in the business. So you take your seat, settle down, the plane takes off, and the flight's progressing quite well, and all of a sudden you hear this buzzing sound, and it comes and goes. But then you notice that the crew has turned on music, so you really can't hear the buzzing anymore until you just think that everything is fine. Then, as time goes on and you're in flight for a couple more hours, you start hearing this clank, clank sound, and then a grinding sound. And so you notice that the flight crew comes along and they give you earplugs. So you put the earplugs in and you settle back into your seat, and the flight continues for another few hours, and all of a sudden the plane starts to vibrate and shake, and then it drops, and then it shakes again. Now you're concerned. So you request that permission to go to the cockpit and talk to your friend, which you're allowed to do. So you go in the cockpit, and what you observe is duct tape over sensors, and warning lights are flashing. And the co-pilots with a screwdriver punching the lights out. And your friend turns to you and say, you know, it's really kind of obnoxious, these warning systems, and we're just kind of handling it. And you're like in shock. And then what happens is one of the engine goes out, and you're told to go back to your seat and prepare for an emergency landing. Now, you now have a crisis. What I've just described to you is our present healthcare system. The pilot's your doctor. You have a symptom, an ache or a pain, and you've watched TV and you've heard the commercials, you know, for fast relief of pain, take this. A woman playing in a meadow with butterflies. And then, like an opportunity, you hear all the side effects, which includes death. No wonder I didn't want to do that. And yet, that's how we manage our healthcare system. 126,000 people die every year in this country from properly prescribed medication reactions. Now, medications have made amazing improvements in our healthcare system, but we've come to over-rely on those. If you have a symptom that doesn't go away, we go to the doctor, he gives us a diagnosis, and we're given a prescription. And basically, what that tells our body to do is shut up. The alarm is going off, and we're suppressing it. Now, is it any wonder that as we age, we get sicker and sicker and on more and more medications? Now, studies are done very meticulously to determine whether a drug is ready to be released to the public. Once the safety is established, it's released. Where are the studies that combine two medications at the same time? Where are the studies that combine 3 or 4 or 5 or 6? There are none. So we're creating a real health crisis in our country simply because how we take care of our illnesses. Now, my point of view is the best way to change this crisis is to educate people to be more proactive in their own health. Celia Recruit, the past Surgeon General of the United States, in a speech years ago, said that 85% of all healthcare problems in America are the direct result of dietary abuses and deficiencies. That means, if that's true, we can turn 85% of our healthcare problems around simply by changing our diet and modifying our lifestyle. Now, what's really interesting to me is we have gotten so out of touch with food and our bodies. We put real lemon in furniture polish and artificial lemon in our lemonade. What's wrong with this picture? Have you ever had packaged food in your pantry and it's been there for a year or two, and you open it up and there are no bugs in it? Do you think that might be a clue that we might not should eat that? I mean, bugs might be a little smarter than we are. So we've gotten more into processed foods, foods that have never really been alive. And it's really taking a toll on our health care. Clinically, what we're finding is that a large percentage of patients have a gross vitamin 3 deficiency. That's an important vitamin. It's critical in so many biochemical processes. And a lot of people are deficient in iodine. Where do we get our minerals? Where do we get our vitamins? Well, we get them from our food supply. I talked to a rancher a number of years ago, because as I drive through the valleys going to Idaho, which is a great drive, you notice all this area of sagebrush were being reclaimed by farmers who are plowing and planting. And I asked this farmer, I said, do you ever do an assay on the nutritional content of your feed? He said, all the time. I said, what do you find? He said, we find that when we first plant a field that's never been planted before, the nutrient content is very high. And we get a premium dollar for that feed. But each year thereafter, the nutrient content gets lower and lower and lower. Now think about the soils that we've been farming for hundreds of years. Where does the soil get the mineral from? Usually it gets it from floods, where the water rushes down from the mountains down into the plains and floods the valleys. Well, that doesn't happen so much anymore. We use a lot of synthetic fertilizers to stimulate growth, but the nutrient content of our food supply is not necessarily the best. So what's the answer? We have to supplement with high quality nutrients. We've got to be more willing to eat organic foods and begin to improve the overall function of our bodies. We see this in agriculture. If cattle are not fed proper nutrients, they have a lot of sickness. If you have horses, the same thing. They break down a lot easier. What we're seeing clinically in our kids is kids are breaking down more than they used to. And I submit to you that it has to do with the food supply and the way we feed our kids. Now, we have a big problem in this country with addictions to pain medication. And so we really need to start looking at this thing we call pain and what pain is about. Now, in the analogy of the airline flight, we can either suppress the symptoms, which allows the body to break down even more, or we can begin to understand the mechanism of pain. In my world, we look at function. And what we've discovered is that muscles, little bones, they support joints, stabilize joints. They're tied into the central nervous system, and the central nervous system monitors function through little receptors, little reflexes throughout the entire body. And when a system becomes stressed or overloaded or dysfunctional, those little receptors begin to fire alarms to alert us that there's a problem. We tend to just ignore it or suppress it. But in physical therapy circles, in the literature, they have found a phenomenon that they call arthrogenic muscle inhibition. Arthro means joint, muscle inhibition. They found that if a joint is inflamed, irritated, or damaged, any muscle that attaches to the joint or cross over the joint becomes inhibited. So anytime you load that muscle, it will give way in a weak response. If you continue to load that muscle, you'll get pain at the attachments. That pain can be diagnosed as bursitis, tendinitis, myofasciitis, and the treatment of choice is anti-inflammatories and/or pain pills. When that happens, the central nervous system computes an adaptive strategy by shifting stress onto the muscle next to the muscle that's been injured or overloaded. And if you're successful in that adaptation, your pain goes away. Our sense is we've now been healed. The problem with that is every time we adapt, we lose a level of efficiency and function. So as we go through life, we have one injury on top of another, and they accumulate. And as we age, we get to the point where we don't have anything left to adapt to, and so we end up with chronic pain. Now, if muscles fail to engage properly, and you can exercise those muscles, and they will not strengthen. It's a big problem in post-surgical rehabilitation. We find people after 6 months, a year after having cruciate ligament replacement and repair, they still can't contract their quadriceps. And so, if the muscles don't properly engage to support the joint, then all the stress of weight bearing goes into the joint, and you begin to accelerate the degenerative changes, and then you end up with the need of a joint replacement at the age of 50 or so. So, there's a simple technique that anybody can use in those circumstances, which is to just get a basic anatomy textbook. Go to the bookstore and buy an anatomy coloring book and look at where muscles attach. And if you have shoulder pain, look at the anatomy book about the muscles of the shoulder, and then just feel the muscle attachments, and you'll find the attachment points will be incredibly painful. All you have to do is just take your finger and massage those points, both the origin and insertion. And it's interesting because those points will be screaming. And as you massage those, the pain will just gradually decrease. And you move your joint and the pain's gone. It's so simple, and yet it's so effective. Now, there are problems that go deeper which require professional help. But I really think as physicians, we need to start training, teaching people how to help themselves, how to improve their health. And, you know, healing is a really important process of life. I've seen people in the process of dying who healed in an instant. John Stockton's sprained ankle. If you constitute or consider healing as an absence of symptoms and a normal level of function, he in essence was healed in 15 minutes, or 2 days, or a day. So is it possible to accelerate healing? Absolutely, if you understand how to support that. We've got so many health conditions in our culture right now, and I think one of the biggest challenges for all of us is we don't listen. We're so conditioned to suppress, to avoid, that we're screaming as a culture for understanding. We're screaming as a culture for somebody to just listen. A patient came in a few weeks ago and asked me about a granddaughter, 12-year-old granddaughter, had been sick for 2 years. And I suggested that the child had Lyme's disease. She went to her pediatrician and made that comment, and the pediatrician said, she's just depressed, wrote out a prescription for Prozac and referred her to a psychiatrist. I learned early in practice, trust moms. Trust moms, because they're usually right. So we have to heal not only as individuals, we have to heal as a healthcare delivery system and start to listen more and start to integrate more. And if we do that, we can turn this health crisis around in an instant. But the consumers, you as patients, have to demand that integration take place, political issues aside, and we can create a healthier, a happier, more vibrant society. Thank you.